Well, friends, welcome back to page 2 and welcome back to our discussion of Cormac McCarthy's The Crossing. It is book 2 in the Border trilogy. For those of you reading along with me, thank you. And if you are, please let me know because sometimes I feel like I'm talking into the void. I know I know a couple of you are, but if there's more of you out there, please let me know. So, chapter 3 of The Crossing. After we left off last time, we left off with the boys finding, gathering clues on who could have been responsible for murdering their parents and stealing their horses. And they also meet the girl. And so chapter 3 starts off immediately with that. And we get, so Billy and Boyd are, they go back and forth a little bit about whether or not the girl can come with them. And I do like the indecisiveness because you would think, children of that age would be really indecisive, and there's a lot of I don't knows, and kind of appreciate that. But the back and forth, I believe it's in this section that, or towards the beginning of this chapter, that Billy asks Boyd if he would consider leaving if he says no, the girl can't come with them, would he leave with her? You would leave with her, wouldn't you? And he kind of alludes to, yeah, I would. It's crossed my mind, kind of leaving that door open of leaving with the girl and leaving Billy behind. And that's, we'll get to that later. I have some thoughts on that whole thing. So they do run into some men, and they recognize some of their horses, and they quickly discover that papers mean nothing in this world. So they go from they end up taking the horses that were originally belonged to them and take ownership of them again, and this makes them a really big target. Two young boys carrying, with all these horses, it's a huge target. Not only because they're young, and they're susceptible, they're vulnerable, and they're carrying all these horses with them, but because the people who took the horses are probably looking for them again. And, so it makes it, you tend to stand out when you're carrying that many horses with you. So quickly they become a target. The girl ends up asking them she wants to go home, but they want to meet back up later. I believe this is where Billy and Boyd have the conversation of would you leave if I said no, if we wouldn't meet up with her again? I think this is about where it happens. So the girl goes a different direction. They end up separating, but have an agreement to meet back up again. They do seem to make a pretty good team, all three of them together. Boyd and the girl seem to have really clicked. They seem to have more of a kind of a bond than Billy and the girl does. But so pretty obvious pretty quickly that Boyd and the girl have a connection, even though they're really, really young. But I think back then it wasn't too unusual for really young kids to kind of, start their lives with someone that young. So, because I know my grandmother was, I think, 15 when she was married to my grandfather. So 15 or 16. So I don't think it was all that unusual around this time. And, I think when everyone's so separated, there's no really connection. You just travel from place to place. I think it made it more likely that you would settle down and not necessarily keep looking. There isn't that many options. Another thing that I really like about this book is the sense of travel, because no one gets anywhere quickly, even when there's an emergency. And we'll talk more about the emergency here in a minute. But travel seems like it takes time, and that in some ways it makes the tension. It makes those scenes you could have filled with more tension than you normally would if you can get from place to place. Then because it takes time to get to place to place, and to kind of resolve problems that someone's hurt. It takes time to get place to place and to get back to them, and that I think makes things a lot worse. And so the they also run into a troop of travelers, and this is a really weird. The troop with the mule that died and the prima donna. I feel like Boyd seeing the prima donna, there was a kind of, because he sees her, I believe, in the creek or in water bathing, and it feels like something changed in Boyd, maybe accelerated some things. Seems like it was an experience. So I think that influences his choice later, perhaps, but that was kind of strange. So also, so the boys have their horses. They end up traveling. They're trying to meet Robin rendezvous. Excuse me, back with the girl, and they are attacked. This whole section where Billy sees the men across the river, he tries to get to Boyd. They try to leave. They recognize some of the men. And they know who they are. They're trying to hide from them. This whole section was really, really great. I love this section. Billy hears a bullet go right past his ear, and it hits Boyd in the back. All this whole section was just, again, I've said this probably every episode that I've done for this series, but it's so well crafted. There's so many things that are just so well done that just makes me happy the way that it's written. I don't know how he does it, but it's just wonderful, writing, and it has a way of building tension and having a payoff without it being drawn out too long. It's just the right amount of time, just the right amount of page to build tension and then have the payoff. I'm not saying Boyd getting shot is payoff, but the scene developing is the payoff. So Billy is able to find. He takes Boyd. They end up losing a lot of the horses. He takes Boyd, finds a truck. The truck takes him to a house, and then Billy has to try to catch up with the truck that takes him and his brother for help, because his brother obviously is dying, and so he goes on without him. On the journey that Billy takes, this is where I mentioned travel. On the time it takes for Billy to get to Boyd, knowing Boyd is possibly dead, was really just kind of, again, it builds tension and it builds that anxious feeling the entire time, knowing that it takes so much time to get to place. I think we take that for granted sometimes now, where we can travel pretty quickly. But so that's another way that it really builds the tension and kind of delays that, kind of, you wonder what's happening with Boyd. And during this time and throughout this chapter, Billy has dreams about Boyd, and this may be kind of foreshadowing what's going to happen at the end of the chapter. But I was convinced when Billy started dreaming about Boyd, and Billy kind of, having, kind of not knowing where he is, and this kind of confusion, I was convinced Boyd was dead. I thought for sure Boyd would be dead. He would get to him and he'd be dead. But on Billy's journey to find Boyd, he runs into the blind man and to his wife. And I don't know about all of you, but during the blind man's story, the way that he lost his eyesight, did anyone out loud, am I the only one who said, oh man, holy shit, that is wild. That is wild stuff. I don't know if this actually happens. I'm guessing throughout history at some point it did. I think humans have done awful things to each other, so I wouldn't rule it out. But to have your eyes removed that way, and then they try to put them back with a spoon. Oh, that was a brutal. Awful. And they were just hanging out of his skull. Awful. I mean, I don't know. I kept thinking I would grab. He was actually seeing the ground because his eyes were still connected. He was still looking down. I mean, am I the only one who would try to scoop them back in? I mean, I guess you're in shock when that happens. And who expects to get your eyes sucked out of your skull? So he does survive. He's not executed. He's kind of punished for life with losing his eyesight. So this whole section here, I'm still digesting it. I got through it this morning. I'm still kind of going over this section. I think Billy and his his interactions with people when he's traveling, hearing these people's stories. I think chapter 1 was kind of this connection with the wolf, and that was kind of this nonverbal connection there. Section 2 was the man who lost his family, who was challenging God, who was questioning, who was this broken man, this just kind of shattered person who was, kind of angry at God and just kind of grief and just being, pain. And then of course in this chapter, the blind man, and some of that interaction really stuck to me, questioning kind of humanity and evil and, life. You can go through a experience like that with losing your eyesight and still go on and still know and still kind of question things and think that, you're stuck. You're kind of trapped in your own head because you can't see anything. I think that this section when he talks about if evil is so bad, why do so many men do evil things if it's not something that they would be rewarded with? Why are so many men evil? I think that whole thing was really, really thought provoking about evil and why people are evil. If it's such a bad thing, why are so many people evil? And if it's not something that you're rewarded for, choose to be evil. So there has to be some kind of benefit to being evil, and you choose still not to be evil. And just this whole section, I thought was really, really great. And we learned about his wife a little bit and their history. That was really the most kind of what stood out to me most, other than the end of the chapter, I think, in this one. But he is taken. Another thing is that, I think we've talked about this in the first book. I was kind of questioning, are people being so hospitable to them because they are afraid of them, or because they're just friendly people? And it seems like they're just friendly people. There's a lot of people who take them in and who feed them and clothe them and get them supplies, sometimes more than they can carry, or as much as they can carry, just because they're being kind. And I think that's kind of, these complete strangers who are being nice to them and taking them in and giving them assistance when they don't have to. And they sit and pray for them, and they kind of are sincerely concerned about them. These two young boys traveling in this world, in this country, this strange country where they're really out for vengeance. That's something that really sticks out to me too. And I still get hungry reading this book. The way they describe the food is, it's kind of right on my alley, with the tortillas and beans. And it's just, you can't really beat it. So the boys, Billy makes it back to Boyd, finds a doctor, brings the doctor back. He offers him a horse. Doctor refuses. The doctor comes in and, checks Boyd, coming up, tells me he's lucky. He avoided infection. Sounds like he got to him right in time. The doctor saves Boyd, gives the woman he's staying with some supplies to, for his dressings and stuff, and is able to give him water and feed him and keep him warm. Boyd, of course, survives, which was a surprise for me, but there's obviously a reason for that. Boyd survives. They end up continuing on. They make it back to the girl and reunite with the girl. The girl has bruises on her wrists, so it sounds like she was abused, or there was some kind of really bad situation in her home where she was anxious to leave again. She wasn't just not somewhere she wanted to be. And shortly after, Boyd and the girl disappear. They leave Billy, I believe in the middle of the night, and just leave him there by himself. And that really pissed me off. That really upset me that Boyd would do that, because these two brothers who have lost their parents, who have lost everything, and all they have is each other. And Boyd just ups and leaves without a word, without anything. Okay. I guess, I'm not saying it's not believable, but it just makes me angry at Boyd for doing that to Billy after all Billy's done for him. And it's just kind of, it kind of pissed me off. What are you thinking, Boyd? Come on. Don't do that to your brother. So the Boyd and the girl disappear, and we get the classic, I never saw them again, but I hope, really sad that they are separated that way, and that you never sees them again. And again, in this world, you can disappear and become someone else. There's no way for anyone to really track you. You can become a different person. If you jump on a train or you jump on a vehicle somewhere on a horse and you ride somewhere else, you can become a completely different person. And you can get lost and never be found if you try hard enough. And another thing, speaking of technology around this time, was the car, the wind up car the doctor was driving, and the truck who takes wounded Boyd. It takes them places faster than they would have by horse, and it probably saves his life because they're able to find the truck and to take Boyd. So, yeah, really, really interesting to see that kind of how technology has changed and how it's changing their lives. Because if Billy and Boyd were just stuck on the horse, they probably wouldn't have made it without some help with the people in the truck. So, just something kind of something that was on my mind, but really, is the blind man is really what I'm still kind of stewing on and kind of working through that whole section there. So I'm hoping by the end of the book, it'll make a little bit more sense, or kind of get a bigger picture of what these interactions mean that Billy's had with the wolf, with the man, the man in the second chapter, and then now the blind man in the third chapter. I think there'll be some kind of connective tissue to kind of, you know, bring all that together and make it all make sense, and kind of, tie it with a bow. But I did wonder if these were real people for a while, because Billy met the caretaker for the church, and then who tells him the story about the man, and then he meets the blind man. It's always by himself, and it's never with Boyd. I wondered if this is a dream or his imagination. Probably not, but it crossed my mind. So maybe by the end of the book, it's something we can discuss. If you have some ideas or some insights, I'd love to hear it. There is a link in the description to send a message over to me, or you can always join our forum at pagetwing.com. Come by and talk about this book and this chapter and other fun stuff, literature related, movie related, music, kinds of stuff. Come by and check it out. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, I kind of left a bitter taste in my mouth at the end of chapter 3 because of Boyd and him leaving with the girl. But, now it's Billy on his own. So now what does Billy do? Does Billy continue on his quest to find the men responsible? Does he start a different life? Does he head back? I believe Billy's still going to continue. I think he's still going to be on the path and still look for these people he's been searching for this whole time. So I guess we'll wait and see. So until next time, thanks for reading along with me. Again, if you have any thoughts or if you have any ideas, love to hear them. And, it'd be fun to kind of throw ideas around and food for thought. So we will have a discussion. I believe we should have a full book discussion. We'll see who's available. If no one's available, I'll do one by myself. But if you would like to join, again, check out our forum and all the information's there. So until next time, thank you for reading along with me, and we will talk very, very soon. Oh, also, before I forget, we will discuss chapter 4 next Wednesday, and I will hopefully have some more information about the end of the book discussion. Again, thank you for listening. Talk very soon.